Is Atlanta District Attorney Fani Willis just misunderstood? According to a new Associated Press write-up, DA Willis's testimony last week evoked long-standing frustrations for Black women leaders. Per the AP, Latosha Brown, co-founder of voting rights group Black Lives Matter, despaired of the fact that Willis had to answer questions about, quote, whether she has money, whether she has cash or not, and why she has cash, who she sleeps with, who is she flying on an airplane with. She added, when white power, particularly white men, are being held to account, the first thing they do to disqualify the people, or the first thing they do is to disqualify the people that are holding them accountable, end quote. And in case you missed it, here's some of Willis's testimony from last week.
Did you listen to any of the arguments?
I did hear the arguments this morning. It's ridiculous to me that you lied on Monday, and yet here we still are. And I did listen to that argument. I listened to the argument this morning where Adam Abadi, I thought, did an excellent job pointing out how dishonest you were with the court on Monday. And I'm actually surprised that the hearing continued. But since it did, here I am.
When the state was
Well,
able to
it's highly
ask
offensive
follow-ups.
when someone lies on you, and it's highly offensive when they try to implicate that you slept with somebody the first day you met with them, and I take exception to it.
All right, well,
Not all across the mainstream media are sticking behind Fani Willis, though. In fact, she's taken a lot of criticism. In The Atlantic, Richard W. Painter writes that recusal is the right course of action for the Fulton County District Attorney, even if the judge later rules in her favor. Painter writes, Willis needs to do what's in the best interest of her client, the people of the state of Georgia. She should step aside so that someone else can prosecute this case. So we've been paying close attention to developments here in this in what's going on, showing that she did have this romantic relationship with Nathan Wade, the person she picked to prosecute the case against Donald Trump in Georgia, and it seems now to have been extremely well established that they had a pre-existing romantic relationship, one that began far earlier than was disclosed, that he did take her on romantic trips and pay for them. And then he claimed in some footage we played last week in this divorce proceeding he's dealing with that he paid her back in cash, which everybody knows is, kind of laughable. Is something that raises a lot of doubts when you say, oh, yeah, I paid, but I don't have a record of it because it was in cash. That's a pretty uncommon thing to do these days. And so here we are. Now, Fani Willis has consistently said she's, being victimized here. She got up at a black church and said this is because they're coming after a black woman, very much, trying to use identity politics kind of reasoning to explain why this is some sort of witch hunt, even as these clearly serious and not capable of being ignored ethical issues come to light. And so this is a case of the Associated Press recruiting some people to agree that this is all about her status as a black woman.
I don't know if I agree with that. I think sometimes when you use racial justice and racial politics as a reason for why you're being treated poorly, when that's not the case, when you are guilty, and Fani Willis did say in that same speech in that church that she's an imperfect person, it's a disservice to everyone who's experiencing racism, whether it's in the workplace, whether it's in the eyes of the law, or what have you. In the case of Fani Willis, of course, if you go after Donald Trump, no matter who you are, they're going to try and find dirt on you. The law is going to come after you in terms of Trump's attorneys and attorneys that appreciate Donald Trump's particular political persuasion, whether or not they're directly involved with his campaign. And so that's how the law works everywhere, though, unfortunately, is that if you become inconvenient for law enforcement, if you're someone of political interest, you will find yourself under more scrutiny than otherwise. That's really how the law works everywhere, not just in this particular case. Now, Fani Willis was, seeing Wade. They were partners. She testified it began in 2022, as did he. But then there was another witness that came forward and said that their relationship began in 2021. He got appointed to a more favorable position. It seems like she did that because of their romantic relationship. The cash that she had on hand, she also testified that she kept some cash from a campaign that she had, and now there are questions as to whether or not that was legal for her to do. So there's a lot more here going on than just she is a Black woman. Does that make Donald Trump any more guilty or any less guilty? No. But at this point, if you're the district attorney, I think it's time to say, I'm a distraction to this case. I made some mistakes. Let's shake this stuff out separately. Let's deal with this separately. Let's appoint someone else to deal with the Donald Trump stuff. I think that would be a reasonable thing to do.
Yeah, of course. And we haven't even gotten into the concerns about ethical potential violations at her office. A whistleblower came forward and said that that money that the office had received was misspent, was misallocated. That this whistleblower had spoken up about it and then had gotten fired. This whistleblower too was a Black woman, so it's the idea that it's only when to go to that well and say I was mistreated for this reason. Well, did you mistreat this person for that reason? Then does everyone who something negative happens to them could cite that as the reason? And this person is far from the only whistleblower who is prepared to come forward and discuss ethical issues going on in that office. So it seems very clear that her situation is a distraction. Also, that Nathan Wade, her boyfriend that she picked to handle this case, actually kind of lacks sufficient experience to be the person working from the government's perspective on this absolutely pivotal trial that has massive stakes in terms of who is going to be the next president. This is the case that could sink Donald Trump because it's state charges, and he won't be able to, if he becomes president, pardon himself out of them. It is the case that involves so many alleged co-conspirators that can offer testimony against Trump, who can say that he directed him to do these things. So it is a very thorny legal situation for Donald Trump, and they put someone in charge of it who does not have very much experience prosecuting this kind of thing. That fact itself seems wild that that's what's occurring here. And so I can only imagine that nationally, many Democratic political figures who would hope this case would be prosecuted to the full extent of to prosecute it competently because they hope it's going to result in a conviction of Donald Trump, got to be shaking their heads at what went wrong here.
Right. And I just want to point out that getting a quote from someone affiliated with the Black Lives Matter, election division, working on getting more people to vote, they are not representative of Black Lives Matter. Let's keep in mind that Fani Willis is a district attorney. She's the top cop in Atlanta. Fulton County has charged 61 defendants with RICO charges for protesting Stop Cop City, protesting the huge development of a police training center just outside of Atlanta in the woods there. Now, they're facing domestic terrorist charges. If Fani Willis was on the side of Black Lives Matter, we wouldn't have, coming out of Fulton County, coming out of where she is a district attorney in Atlanta, having 61 people charged with RICO charges for protesting cops to be trained, to have military means of prosecution of civilians. The whole point of the cop city training facility is to have cops receive the kind of training necessary to respond in a militarized manner to protests. So that's ridiculous. Fani Willis is not on the side of Black Lives Matter.
Yeah. All right, we'll be back with more Rising right after this. Stay tuned.